Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Better Events Podcast. In today's episode, we are doing a business owner roundup. We're just going to talk about stuff that's been on our minds, stuff that we hope is helpful to you, just a lot of stuff that we've been feeling and experiencing lately. So we hope that you find value to it. So let's get into the episode.
Welcome to the Better Events Podcast. Join two event strategists, Logan Clements and Mary Davidson, who believe we can all create, host, and attend better events. In this podcast, you will learn about event strategy and actions that you can use today as an event host, planner, or manager. Hear directly from the people who are creating innovative and inspiring events today and tomorrow, and grow your business along the way. Now, let's get started, and thanks for listening to the Better Events Podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Better Events Podcast. I'm your co-host, Logan Clements, and I'm joined by fellow co-host Mary Davidson. And this week, before we jump into talking about all things that are top of mind for us right now as business owners, we're going to do a little conversation starter like we always do. And this one, Mary, it's a little silly, but what's your favorite emoji?
Honestly, where do I begin? I still use emojis, which is that cool anymore? I actually don't know, but I
think it is.
I use variations of, the smiley face often. My favorite is the upside down smiley face. I think that one's fun to throw in there sometimes. Why you're looking at me like you don't know?
Because I was going to ask you, what does it mean though? I feel like if you texted me an upside down smiley face, I would be like, well, what does it mean?
I think I like the ominous of like the ominous emojis. I think I like that I don't know what it means. It's just kind of like it's a thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Now I need to go look. Like, what are the most recent used?
I know my frequently used ones. I was about to say, Mary, when this episode drops, we might have to put out a screenshot of some most recently used emojis because listeners, this is a fun exercise. Actually, I just went to be able to answer this question of what are my most frequent because I'm basic with emojis. I love a thumbs up. Mary, you ask if they're not cool anymore. I've learned that with Gen Z, thumbs up's like a sarcastic.
Yeah.
Thumbs up. And I genuinely mean it as like, yeah, thumbs up. It's, I don't know, better than like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So thumbs up is popular. I love some clapping hands.
Yep.
I'm a big clapper. I'm realizing. And then I'm a big, whatever the like preach, the like hands up.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
To me, because that's like a up top. Oh yeah. High five. That's how I see that one. And those are probably my most frequent ones.
Yeah, now I'm learning I need to explore past the smiley faces. Like I don't really like keep scrolling and get creative. But, whatever works. There you go.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about this on the pod before, but I will mirror my clients' emoji use back to them.
Like in
Slack, even an email. I'm not a big, I feel like when I was in college and I was learning about like how to write a resume and everything, they were like, never use emojis, never use exclamation points. You'll be young and unprofessional. And I've learned now I've embraced my exclamation points. I will definitely use exclamation points in an email because that's just my personality. But emojis, I will not be the first to send the smiley face unless you and I already have, like, Mary, I'll send you a smiley face because we know each other. But for like a professional client I've just met, I won't do that. But if they send me a smiley face, I'm definitely sending a smiley face back. Because I'm like, you unlocked a new level of like, I'm going to do this. Because then I feel like I look like a jerk if I don't send an emoji back.
Yeah.
Like they've been fun. And then I'm like,
mean.
Yeah. I'm like, corporate client, not going to smile. Now I'm like, they use emoji. I'm like, I'm totally into it. And Slack's a fun one because it's created a whole new language, I feel like, of shorthand for talking to people. This episode was really going to be where Mary and I are just going to share some kind of thoughts and talk through some things of, again, these are like conversations I feel like you and I have offline, Mary. So we wanted to let our listeners in on just some things as business owners. And if you're a freelancer, or even if you're not a freelancer, if you're just a person, I feel like these are going to apply to you.
You're a person.
Literally, if you're a person, because I'm looking at some of the things I've wanted to talk to you about. And I'm like, first one, really any person could relate to. So,
yeah. So back to our conversation starter from a previous episode recently about, do you believe in aliens? This is not for them. This is for the people. So if you're a person, this is going to resonate.
Aliens, no listening. You got to turn this off. This episode's not for you.
Not for you.
Yeah, I think our first one, Mary, I want to let you kind of bring it up.
The idea of Well, this is more, well, this could be for anything that's challenging in your life, but definitely like from my perspective, probably Logan from yours is like starting a business and like how you learn things. I feel like in this podcast we often talk about lessons learned. We want to share lessons learned with you so that you can learn hopefully through us, and through experiences that we hear from other people, because lessons are learned a lot through events, and that can be hard. It's not easy to like learn lessons, and I feel like for me it's been what I call trial by fire, which is also a phrase, but like that's definitely what I feel like. Lately it's been like one lesson learned after the other, after the other, after the other. And how do you like how do you keep learning? Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, how long do I have to learn these lessons? Why is it trial by fire all the time? When will it stop? So I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this, but it just
No,
feels like trial by fire.
it's a lot. I think it's something that, like, this is why I said it applies to all people, because you experience it as a business owner. I think it can feel more visceral because at times you're on an island by yourself. And so when you're in a trial by fire, you're experiencing a fire, it feels like you're the only person who can put it out, or you're the only person that, it's impacting. Versus if you work for maybe a larger company, you can rely on some of that infrastructure and stuff, or it's not always going to end with you. You can just send it along to the next person. But I still think, like, we always talk about, like, yeah, you have to learn these lessons, and sometimes you have to learn them the hard way. I'd like to tell you, Mary, you don't always have to learn them the hard way, if that makes you feel better. But it is, there's a frustration and a beauty to it of, like, you have to learn it the hard way, and then the idea would be that you don't have to do it again. And maybe it's a question, if you're experiencing the same aspects or exact same thing is hard time and time and time again, then it's maybe realizing either, your approach has to change, or maybe it's just like not for you. Again, this is something that we talk about on the podcast. Like, I feel like I experience this sometimes with just client fit and finding the right people to work with. It can feel, it's a lot. It's really hard to onboard new clients and work with someone you've never worked with before. And that usually comes with challenges. But there's been certain things that I've learned, but like, doesn't matter how many times I do these certain types of roles. It's like, I just don't think that's what I want to do. It's not for me. It's not a bad role. The client's not bad. The event's not bad, whatever it is. It's like, it's not the right role for me. If those gut feelings keep going, it's not for me. But I think that comes to, like, we talk about post-event report too, like some of that stuff of like documenting what's happening can help you in the future for that event. But I can hear what you're saying, because I know it's also hard. Both you and I are in like a very busy season, and it can be hard to apply lessons learned to your next thing because you're already in the middle of the next thing. Like, it's almost like too late for the next event. It'll be good for next year you, but like, what can you do for current you is kind of, it sounds like what you're asking.
Yeah, and it's like what you said too, because each client is different, each event is different. And so like the point you made is interesting. I'm thinking about that, where it's like, yeah, it's a lesson learned, but are you learning the same? Are you having the same lesson learned experience again and again? Because if so, maybe you're not learning, or maybe I don't know. Then I'm like, it's like circumstantial too, it's like
Yeah.
one lesson learned with one event is reflected very different in the next event. And that's what's hard, is I feel like predictability is really challenging with events. I think like you're also saying that there are things that you can structure. I'm all about like the systems and structure nowadays. I'm like, how do you do it in a way that still is personable and makes sense, but can avoid some of these things that we're talking about, these lessons learned again
Yeah.
and again. Once again, I don't know the answer.
No, but
Yeah.
I mean, we had a really fun, if you haven't listened to it, you should go back and listen to, and hold me honest, Mary, the episode, it was our Cascadia episode 95, where we had interviewed people from the Cascadia conference. Cause one of the sessions we did was talking about event trends and hot and unpopular opinions.
Hmm.
And Mary, this is one that I feel like we got a lot of people's stories that are from a trial by fire situation, because we got so many good hot takes from planners and vendors in the room of their personal preferences on things. And some of them were polarizing, and some of them were things people didn't agree with, but that's still okay. So like, to your point of, the trial by fire is like, you could standardize it. That's fine. Someone else can customize it, a bit more freewheeling with it. But just figuring out kind of like what works for you. I feel like for you, my advice in this moment would just be document how you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Would
Yeah.
be to, like, without judgment. There's no right or wrong way to feel right now. You would just like write down, I'm a writer, but even like bullets of jotting down of like what's really frustrating you and what's helping you wake up every day and get excited about what you do. And just having that in a space when you have time to sit and like look at it a little bit farther away from it can help indicate, draw some conclusions from it and help you kind of figure out future how to work through it. Because that's what I always love. I was talking to someone the other day. I'm doing an event that I've done before, an annual event, and I was looking back at my post-event feedback report because somebody was like, "Oh, who got the furniture for the stage?" And I was like, "Oh, I wish I knew." And of course, good past Logan wrote about it in my post-event feedback report. But the way I write them, listeners, is like very stream of consciousness. And you can tell it's been a rough event if I've started the post-event report weeks before the events actually happened, because
You're like, I'm ready.
I need to remember what was happening.
Mhm.
But it was like reading this report, I instantly like transitioned back into that past me that was like dealing with those frustrating situations. And I could like feel my frustration at certain scenarios in this post-event report, which was really helpful because, again, I didn't word for word copy and paste and send it to, but I was able to pull snippets of like, yes, that was frustrating. We shouldn't go that way. We should use a different vendor. Or like I could still glean things to help current me. But I will also say I didn't feel as personally probably frustrated as I did when I was writing it. I don't feel that way now, but I can read it and very quickly see where I was in my headspace of just being like, I need to get all this out on paper of all the things that happen, big and small. And so that's like a helpful way. That's how I process.
Helpful. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you with this therapy session with Logan, therapist Logan today. I appreciate it. No, seriously, that's super helpful. So lessons learned, I'm sure it's like it's a continual process just in life, right? Because we're talking about people. But I think those were some really good tips. So I hear it. I'll see what I can do.
Well, we're always learning.
Yeah.
I feel like for me, another topic that is top of mind, Mary, you talk about being busy. And I feel like as a business owner, it is a great problem to have to be busy. But what I've realized is then you'll come up with unforeseen challenges of being that maybe you didn't have to experience when you're not as busy. And you've done nothing different apart from just being busier. And for me, one of the challenges I've seen right now as a business owner is late payments, which is something that I honestly have not had to deal with in a very long time. And not late payments in the sense of like, these people aren't going to pay me. That's not really the concern. It's just like no complete disregard for invoice deadlines. I just have some folks that have just been slow to pay. And for whatever reason, it's honestly been across the gamut of reasons. Someone was out of the office. Somebody was also very busy and overwhelmed, and it just kind of got lost in the shuffle. Another didn't have a very good onboarding process. And so that took way longer, and they weren't good at communicating with me about it. But it's been a little stressful because for me as a business owner and as a freelancer, anybody, if you work full time somewhere, if you didn't know when your end of month paycheck was not coming at the end of the month and no one could tell you when it was coming, it can just be financially frustrating. And it's hard for me because I think the money part is like the least fun part of what we do. And so I hate to be that person who's chasing someone for payments. I have late clauses in my contract, and I'm currently looking at how my accounting software can start to just implement that for me, because I don't want to have some of those tough conversations with people of like, I understand things come up, but to a point, if you're now 2 months late with something. And I had the best like wake up call, I feel like, for it a couple months ago with another freelancer who was like, we were all getting paid separate. And so they were really upset that we weren't able to like institute all of our late payment guidelines. But I was like, oh, they were all different. We're all different freelancers. Like I probably should have come up with like a standard flat rate thing for all of us if it was late. And she was like, I can't tell my landlord that I'll pay them in net 30 or in net 60. Like my rent is still due. I was like, yeah, your rent is still due. And like, you still have to pay these things. So it's just been a little frustrating, especially when I know some of these are not from like my small clients or like my companies that are only 1 to 5, 10 people big. I know are smaller and have a tougher time. Like I give them a lot of grace, but I'm having this happen with like some of my bigger ones, which is just, it's frustrating. I had to vent about it. No, but nothing's perfect.
It's frustrating for a lot of reasons, for sure. Yeah. That's interesting too. Like, and good on you for trying to figure out how to make it an automated process with your accounting software, because I would be too, I don't like confrontation. That would be challenging. So yeah.
Well, and that's the hard part is like, I have to look, it's on my to-do list to look into it, but I'm just trying to think of a way that's better than Because the lateness I'm getting is also with the clients that have an accounting department are more hands off. So they're not emotional about it. It's not me chasing the person
Right.
that I know and I'm working with. It's like the emotionless that I'm like, I have a contract with you. We signed something. I sent you an invoice that was net. My terms are usually like net 15, 2 weeks after the event. And the argument I will always make, listeners, is I can't unwork an event for you. I can't go back in time and stop doing all that event stuff I did for you. So I always ask for, my standard is like 50% upfront, 50% after the event. And so the frustrating part is like services have been rendered, but
Services have been rendered. Yes.
but the payment has not been received. And so that's why my solution with the accounting software was I thought it could match some of that, but I would, to your point, Mary, I'd have to like note to like undo it for clients that I knew had either let me know ahead of time or something. But I'm like, I'm flexible and I could change my invoice deadlines if you let me know it's coming late. The frustration I'm having is they're not telling me it's late, and then it's late, and it's late by several weeks, which is just hard as like a business owner and a person trying to just like plan for your own finances to be put in a strapped situation that you shouldn't be in because you've been working a bunch and you're just not getting paid for it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, crack down on those deadlines, Logan.
Ugh, like you said, I don't love the confrontation with you either. It's always it's a rough one.
That is hard. Yeah. You know what? Well, we live and we learn, so you can do it. I like your system you're trying to put in place. And then something else I know that we wanted to chat about today is repeat versus new work.
It's always fun to work with new people and to bring on new clients, but it's also really there's a nice cadence you can get with working with folks that you've worked with before. I don't really know if there's a point there. It's more just as like a business owner, it's just that interesting push pull where like you want to go after the new shiny big or just new shiny thing. But also going into it, you got to know it's got to be like, you got to figure out your communication style. You got to figure out all these things. Back to like our topic about, the client experience, our episode on that, like versus the you already did this with them once, you're going to do it again. Yep. Everything's going to be pretty similar. We're just going to insert a couple new speakers or a couple new elements, but it's going to be the same thing. And like, just that push and pull, I feel like as a business, I haven't figured out what that balance looks like. Because we talk about our time, it's like, it's just finite. There's only so much time we can put into things. And so wanting to make sure that we're not overextended, but also wanting to say yes to the new challenges. So I don't feel like I have a point here. I just more wanted to throw this up there just to hear, I guess, how do you evaluate like when you're taking on repeat versus new work?
This is something that I'm like finally having the pleasure, I guess, of repeat work. Going into the second year, I'll be at 3 years in like July, which feels crazy. Anyway, the cadence is I'm finally being able to get repeat work because we're like, we go through a year, and this is the first year where I can have repeat work. So I don't know, it's something that I'm still learning. I hear what you're saying for sure. I think that no year is the same. I think that people will say it's the same and it's just not the same. I have been surprised though with the repeat clients on like how my contracts have changed. And I think it's a good thing because you have 1 year to figure out how you work together. And then by the next time, I've noticed they'll want to, like add something in, or maybe they take something out because we realized we didn't really like need it or something like that. But it just feels like more of a accurate scope of work come the second time around. But I think it's also important to, really, really keep the expectations clear, because here's the thing and this is what we're talking about. We've learned lots of lessons. We keep changing, for the better, hopefully. Right. And improving our processes. So when you have repeat clients, it's sort of a challenge is like, well, last time it was like this, but now this is our new expectation, Like before you could walk all over me, but now you can only talk to me on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So it's like
draw those boundaries, Mary.
but I'm not. That's what's hard to do. That's what I just what I just said is maybe what I aspire for in a nicer tone, but but it's actually hard to do. So I don't know. I also don't feel like I have a point, but I hear what you're saying with this general topic for sure.
Yeah, and I think I don't know. It's such a hard a hard one because, yeah, you're right. Like, we're always changing and we are evolving. And this is also top of mind for me because I've just been, I feel like with instituting, doing my own retreats and things, I've tried to be more reflective these last 2 years in business than I probably was in my first 3, 4, or at least more structured with that reflection in terms of really thinking through what events, I definitely want to do again, or what new events I want to go after, or like what certain ones that I want to go out there and put myself out there for versus have come to me.
Mm.
And I've just had the realization there's been a couple projects that I've realized like past me would have loved. Like
Ooh.
years ago me would have loved. And current me is like, it's just not the right fit. And that has been an interesting realization,
Yeah.
and figuring out how to handle that, because again, it's nothing, and there's not anything I can point to of like, again, no one's a bad person in this scenario. It's just a realization that I'm like, if younger me was out there, she would have loved this. But
Right.
current me, like it's not what I'm excited about. And it's like figuring, and because of, I feel like some of what we're talking about is a little connected, but like that trial by fire and figuring out what I like and what I really enjoy and can't, wait to keep doing, how that's gotten a little bit more nailed down.
But it's so hard to, like, if I was listening to this, and even now I like naturally go this route, is like, but if I don't do this, they're not gonna want to work with me, like, type of mindset, which maybe is that scarcity mindset. But like, it's challenging because then you hear people, and we've said it. I think maybe I even said it in this episode. It's like, if that's not, if they don't fit what you're looking for, or what you're pushing out, then maybe that they're not the right fit for you. But in my mind, that's hard for me. Like, I want to be the right fit for everybody. Like, and
Yeah.
so that is hard. Like, I'm like, we give this advice, but acknowledge too that it's actually really challenging for me to like stomach it still. I'm like, but I want to be the right fit for everyone. And I don't know. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah. I
actually
mean,
kind
you
of
want
hard.
to be. I mean, I have
Yeah.
conversations. I mean, I just also remember, when I first started my business, I remember it being like, what do you mean ideal client? Everyone's my ideal client. I'm everyone's ideal, event manager, event planner, whatever I was calling myself when I started. And I think I'm just starting to realize more. Again, it's like, it's not that I couldn't do the job. It's just more of like what brings me personal fulfillment. And I think to your point that Mary, you're saying like scarcity mindset. I mean, and I've shown this in other episodes, but I printed it out. I put it on my desk that says there will always be another gig, another event. And that's just something I have to like remind myself, both when you're in a tough one that you're like, oh, there'll be another one, it'll have its own challenges or things like that. But I think also to remind myself that saying yes to, and another quote I always have somewhere else now, I think I have it up on my whiteboard right now, is that is a yes to something is a no to something else. So that if I say yes to an event for June 15th to 20th, I can't say yes to another event that's also June 15th to 20th. And while that first opportunity, got to me first, and yes, I'm available, and like there's always going to be a part of me that's like, if I'm available, I should say yes. And I think I'm trying, and my like word of the year was being to cultivate. And I'm trying to, last year it was intention was my word of the year. And I think cultivate's kind of building on that, is I'm trying to cultivate more of a year and a client base that fits current 2023 me and what I need. And it's just been very interesting, because again, I'm with you, Mary, that I want to say yes to everything. But I
And
also
I think,
realize that like that hurts me at times, because it's not
yeah.
really what I want to do.
But the thought of there will always be another event. Everyone says this, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, but will there? You know? Like, am I alone
But
in
that's the
thinking this?
mindset. No,
Like,
no, there's allowed to be fear with it. It's not a fearless, assumption. You're totally right. Will there always be? There won't be. We experienced it in 2020, COVID. Everything got canceled.
yeah.
Everybody's finances went bottom up in the event industry. Like there was not another event. There was not another gig for a couple months until people figured out virtual. But I like to think, I think for me, it's more like there always will be another event, because they're true. It's that, again, it's the abundant, you talked about this, the abundance mindset.
Yeah.
Like it just is like, there always will be another one. There always will be. And that's, again, it's on my desk because I need that as a reminder, listeners. I do not live and breathe this all the time. It's there to remind me when I do that, because it's more, this has come from like reflecting on frustrating situations and events. And a lot of it's being like, I said yes to an event I could do and I rocked it. But like personally, was it the most fun for me? Maybe not.
Yeah.
Versus, and that's the difference between the other events that I come off and I'm like, I'm tired, but wow, that was, we were humming, we were grooving. I was doing what I'm pretty sure I was meant to be doing.
Yeah. That's super interesting, I think, because also, like, there will always be another event because you have the power to get something else. Like, you are a capable human being who's really talented. And so if you say no to that gig because you just feel like it isn't going to be a good fit, you could go sell yourself to someone else. You could go tell your resources, "Oh, I am free June 15th to the 20th. Like, let me know if you need anything." Like, I do
Yeah.
think, yeah, and that's what we talked about. That's why, like, your relationships are so important, is because that's when you can go turn to your network. If worse comes to worse and you truly need something and you do not have it, you can get it. And I think that that's actually really interesting. And I think motivating to
Yeah.
think
I
about as
mean, it
well.
is. And well, and my example that I always will have in my head is I had a vacation plan 2 years ago in December, and I was taking a week and a half off, or 2 weeks off. Yes, I was taking 2 weeks off, and I had put it on calendar. I was really, setting the boundary with everyone. I was like, I'm offline. I'm offline. I said no to 2 gigs that would have overlapped with the start of this vacation. I said no. The third person to ask me was a dream event for a client I love. And I went to my partner and was like, I kind of really want to say yes to this, because this is like, I've been wanting to do this for so long. Can we shift our flights? It'll delay our trip a couple days. We'll still be offline. We'll still be on vacation for a week and a half. And we ended up making it work. And I got to say yes to that person. And I like had to sit there and realize that, like, if I didn't have that time off scheduled, I would have said yes to the first person who asked me for those dates. I would have, because I would have kind of that scarcity mindset of it all, Mary, of like, I would have been like, any business is good business. It's up before the holidays. This is a busy time. Like, I should just say yes. And the only reason I got to say yes to the dream project was because I had to say no to the first 2.
Dang.
And
Yeah.
if you say no to all of them, like, obviously, yeah, you're not going to get any business if you just say no to everything. You can't wait around for it. But like, just no. Like, sometimes a no to something is going to be a yes to a future thing. Or you saying yes to that gig right now is unfortunately when your friend calls you and that they 3 weeks in advance, like, I need help. And I've been that friend calling my event friends, and I have to get a nice no from them because they're already booked. It's
Mhm.
it's a tough one, but at the same time, you're saying yes to something and it's a no to something else.
I'm motivated. What about you?
Oh, I'm feeling good. This is like, it's like a
Yeah.
this was a cathartic episode. I feel like, again, just to give our listeners a window into some of what we're thinking about as business owners. I think it
Yeah.
provides, I feel like there's a little bit of vulnerability here in this episode, that like, we trust you, our Better Events community. It's not always shiny rainbows and Instagram posts of how it's going. And both Mary and I are getting really busy, which is a great problem to have. But I think with it, like we talked about today, unlocks some new challenges and trial by fire lessons learned, as you say,
Oh, yeah.
Mary.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, that then brings us to the end of our episode where we talked about all this small business owner stuff. So, Logan, you have our bonus tip for today.
Yeah, so my bonus tip this week is going to be a little themed around being a business owner, is to have CEO days. This is in line with, I mentioned a couple times in this episode, my retreat that I do at the end of the year. And I try to do it now 6 months in, but I have been instituting now a CEO day at the end of every month. So I try to, and every month I do it, I book the next month on my calendar. And it has been anywhere from a full day to, when I got really busy, I honestly could only do 2 hours, where I'm going to do no client work and I'm sitting there and I'm just thinking about my business. And I'm thinking about the work I just did, or the work I'm going to be doing, or the processes I want to change. And it's just been really helpful. I like to journal, or it's a time I've been meaning to make a new template for something, like I can do that with that time. And it's been really helpful to have a more frequent check-in with myself. And I did this because I had these great annual retreats, and now every 6 months, just to have some me time for my business. And I would highly encourage you to do this. You can have a CEO day as a full-time employee as well. It will still benefit you just to spend some time away from the doing of the work and reflecting on like why you do it or what you would change about it by taking like a step back. So schedule yourself a CEO day.
Great bonus tip. That's something that's been on my mind. So you prompted me to do it. So thank you so much for that bonus tip today. And then that brings us to the end of our episode. So thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Better Events podcast and listening to all of the stuff that we talked about today. If you'd like to follow us and listen to or find us other places, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn at Better Events Pod. You can email us at bettereventspod@gmail.com. You can check out our website at bettereventspod.com. You can also connect with Logan and I directly on LinkedIn. We're all around, so we're happy to hear from you. Please reach out, and we will see you again next Wednesday.